May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be ever pleasing in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Some of you may have heard on the news or just seen it on your Facebook or whatever, but yesterday was a rather big day for space people. Not just because we got a slew of new Star Trek trailers and things, but yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landing on the moon. It's kind of a big deal when that happened. I mean, I was not alive, nor do I remember when it happened, but there are plenty of people around that still do remember. And when I hear the interviews, and when I hear people talk about what it meant to them, watching this momentous, life-changing, it was a shift in our understanding of what we could do as humanity. It was a shift in our understanding of what we could accomplish and what we as humanity could build in this world. We went to a whole other place. And through that, it united people, brought them together, surrounded by their TVs, looking at this, watching this moment and feeling empowered and energized and awestruck at what was going on. But there's one moment that happened on the moon that isn't often talked about as much, because it wasn't exactly broadcast. It was put over the radio waves and everything. You could hear them talking, but everything wasn't said. Right whenever the lander landed on the moon, Buzz Aldrin said, "We're going to take a moment now to give thanks. And whatever your tradition is, and whatever your practice is, we've done something here, and we have to give thanks that we've made it to this place." And at the same time, as they had a moment of silence to give thanks, Buzz pulled out his pack, his personal pack that had his stuff that he brought with him, because everyone's allowed to bring a little something. And he brought out a chalice, and a little bit of bread, and a little wine that had been reconsecrated by his Presbyterian pastor. And one of the first meals to be had on the moon was in fact Holy Communion. I will say Neil Armstrong didn't partake. It was offered to him. But Buzz celebrated the Eucharist in that moment to give thanks for all that had happened and all they had come and how far they had come, and to recognize that God must be at work somewhere in this. Now, what does all that have to do with the readings we heard today? What does that momentous occasion have to do with this rather pedestrian story of Mary and Martha? Because we all know the story. Jesus shows up in town. Martha invites Jesus into her home. And immediately Mary sits down at Jesus' feet and listens to Jesus and all he has to say. But Martha, oh Martha, Martha works and she works and she works and she cleans and she cooks. And who can blame her? I mean, it's the Son of God. The Word incarnate, God on earth, has just shown up in your house. I have a feeling if God showed up at my house, I'd probably be a little more Martha than Mary. I'd be running around like she is. You can't blame her. It's like, we gotta keep up, we gotta impress. The Joneses are here. Like, we gotta put out the best food, the best of everything. And then Martha realizes that Mary's not helping in all this. That Mary's not engaged in making sure that Jesus feels welcomed. So she goes to Jesus and says, "Jesus, tell her to help me. Because I'm the one putting out all the fancy cheeses here, not her." And Jesus says no. Mary has chosen the right thing, and that will not be taken from her. She has stopped to listen what I have to say. Now, I will say that I get very disappointed in how this reading is often used. Because often when you read the commentaries, when you hear it preached on, it often condemns works. It condemns Martha. It says Martha was bad and wrong, and we should sit at the foot of Jesus and remember to sit at the foot of Jesus always. And that that's the most important thing. It often pits Mary against Martha. Which is the model we're supposed to be? Are we supposed to be a Mary, or are we supposed to be a Martha? But I think the point of the reading is not that Martha was wrong and Mary was right, but that Mary chose the right thing in the right moment. In that moment, to make Jesus feel welcome, to do the work that needed to be done, Mary needed to sit there and listen. But that doesn't condemn the work that Martha was doing. That doesn't make the work bad. It just wasn't the time to work. It wasn't the time to do all that. It wasn't the appropriate and right time that Martha needed to be doing all the things she was doing. Because if we look at our first reading for today, we get a very similar layout, don't we? God's presence is known. God shows up to Abraham. I mean, God is now 3 people at this point. And Abraham welcomes them into the tent. And Abraham immediately starts running around. He offers them cakes at first, and the cakes are made, but then he goes even above and beyond. He gives them water to wash their feet. He goes out and kills a calf and serves it to them. He gives them milk and curds. He lays out the caviar. Like, he goes all out, running around, getting everyone to work, making sure these 3 people feel welcomed. Basically the work Martha was doing. But is Abraham condemned for it? No. Abraham is celebrated for it. Abraham is lifted up for it. He is reminded of the promise that's been made to him that he'll be the father of nations and his wife will get pregnant. He's given credit for it. God acknowledges Abraham's work. Because Abraham was able to do it in a way that welcomed and attended to what was needed. Whereas Martha was probably a little more inwardly focused, working for her own needs or what she thought needed to be done, instead of paying attention to the guest and what the guest really wanted and expected. The work is not bad. It's doing the work for our sake of ourselves. It's doing work that's just internal or work that we build up in our heads that we think we need to do that's not necessary. That's what can be an obstacle to God's plan in the world and what we're supposed to be doing. To not recognizing the moments when we need to just stop and listen. To working and keeping busy when we need a moment of calm in our lives. Look at the moon landing. How much work went into getting us to the moon? We're talking hundreds of thousands of people, millions of man-hours, decades of work and study and all-nighters and everything else went into getting us to that place. And that work was needed. It was right, it was salutary, because it got us to that point where we were all united, where we all had that moment of clarity, and where we moved into a place where we felt we could do anything. The work was necessary. But then when the work was done, when we got there, we did take a pause. We stopped. We listened. We paid attention to what was going on. And at least the astronauts in the capsule gave thanks and paused and breathed and prayed. worked when they needed to work. And they paused and listened when they needed to pause. So as we look at the story of Mary and Martha, we need to remember it's not Mary or Martha, but Mary and Martha. Be both in the world. When you need to sit at the foot of Jesus and pray and discern and listen and figure out what the calling is and where you're supposed to be working in the world and what's supposed to be going on. Get confidence from Christ. Get confidence from what you hear as you sit at his feet. But then when you do know what you're being called to do, when you do go through that discernment, when you do figure out where the work needs to be done, then pray that you have the strength of Martha to go out and do all of that work. Pray that you can go out and do what needs to be done in the world with the strength and vigor that she had. That's the winning recipe. It's both, not either or. And if we really sit and pray, if we really sit and listen, if we really look around and discern where we're being called, and then we go out and quit that work in the world, we did make it to the moon. So who knows where else we'll end up.